The rain hammered against the windows of Sterling Industries like 1,000 angry fists. Rose Bennett stood in the marble lobby, water dripping from her worn jacket onto the pristine floor. She clutched her portfolio bag tighter, willing herself to stop shaking. This was her chance, maybe her only chance. The receptionist barely glanced up from her computer screen. The design firm on the 14th floor requested samples by 5. "You have 10 minutes," Rose nodded, and hurried toward the elevators. Her sneakers squeaked embarrassingly against the polished marble. She could feel the eyes of security guards and suited professionals following her, judging the girl who clearly did not belong in this temple of wealth and power. The elevator ride felt eternal. Rose studied her reflection in the mirrored walls. Her dark auburn hair hung in damp waves around her face. Her green eyes looked too wide, too nervous. At 23, she still looked like a college freshman, especially in her thrift store clothes and canvas messenger bag. The doors opened on the 14th floor, but Rose pressed the wrong button in her nervousness. Instead of going down, the elevator continued upward. Her heart sank as the numbers climbed higher. 35, 40, 50. The elevator stopped at the 68th floor. The doors slid open to reveal a world Rose had only seen in magazines. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the city sprawling below. Modern art hung on charcoal walls. The scent of expensive leather and cedar filled the air. Rose frantically pressed the button to close the doors, but a deep voice stopped her cold. "Hold the elevator." She looked up and forgot how to breathe. Nathaniel Sterling walked toward her with the confidence of a man who owned everything he touched. At 36, he commanded attention without effort. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his charcoal suit tailored to emphasize broad shoulders and a lean frame. But it was his eyes that made Rose's pulse stutter. They were the color of expensive whiskey, sharp and assessing. He stepped into the elevator, and suddenly the spacious car felt impossibly small. His presence filled every inch of air. Rose pressed herself against the far wall, clutching her bag like a shield. Nathaniel glanced at her, and something flickered in his expression. Curiosity, perhaps? Or amusement at her obvious discomfort? "Which floor?" he asked, his voice like smooth bourbon. "Lobby," Rose managed to whisper. His eyebrow lifted slightly. "You came all the way to the executive floor just to go back down?" Rose felt her cheeks burn. It was an accident. "I pressed the wrong button." Nathaniel studied her face with an intensity that made her skin tingle. His gaze traveled from her wet hair to her paint-stained fingers gripping the portfolio bag. Something about his expression softened, just barely. "You are an artist," he stated rather than asked. "I study design. Interior spaces, mostly." Rose didn't know why she was explaining herself to this man, but the words kept coming. "I had a meeting with the design firm on 14, but I think I missed the appointment window." The elevator began its descent. Nathaniel pressed a button, and the car stopped between floors. Rose's eyes widened in alarm. "What are you doing? Giving you a chance to breathe. You look like you might faint." Rose straightened her spine, finding a spark of defiance beneath her nervousness. "I am fine." For the first time, Nathaniel's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. It transformed his face, making him look less like a cold corporate titan and more like a man who remembered how to feel. "Show me," he said suddenly. "What? Your portfolio?" "Show me what you create." Rose hesitated. This man clearly held enormous power in this building. What if her work wasn't good enough? What if he laughed? But something in his eyes told her he was genuinely interested. She unzipped her bag with trembling fingers and pulled out her tablet, scrolling through images of her designs. Warm living spaces filled with natural light, cozy reading nooks tucked into unexpected corners. Rooms that felt like home, not showrooms. Nathaniel took the tablet from her hands, his fingers brushing hers. The contact sent electricity racing up her arm. He studied each image carefully, his expression unreadable. "You design spaces for people to feel safe," he observed quietly. Rose blinked in surprise. Most people commented on color schemes or furniture choices. Nobody had ever identified the heart of her work so quickly. "Everyone deserves a place where they can stop pretending," she said softly. Something dark and complicated crossed Nathaniel's face. He handed back the tablet, his fingers lingering a moment longer than necessary. "The design firm on 14 is competent but uninspired. They would not appreciate what you do." He pressed a button, and the elevator resumed its descent. "Come to my office tomorrow at 9. I have a project that needs someone who understands what you just said." Rose stared at him in shock. "I don't understand." "You don't even know my qualifications or experience." "I know enough." The elevator doors opened onto the lobby. Nathaniel stepped out, then turned back to face her. His expression was serious, almost challenging. "Unless you're afraid." Rose felt something shift inside her chest. This man represented everything she had learned to distrust: wealth, power, privilege. Men like him had destroyed her father's construction business with a single phone call. Men like him saw people like her as disposable. But standing there in her wet clothes with her second-hand portfolio, Rose made a choice. She lifted her chin and met his gaze directly. "I will be there at 9, she said firmly. Nathaniel's smile returned, genuine this time. It made him look almost vulnerable. "Good. 68th floor. Ask for me by name." He paused, as if considering his next words carefully. "And Rose, wear whatever makes you comfortable. You don't need to pretend to be someone else in my office." Before she could ask how he knew her name, Nathaniel walked away, disappearing into a private corridor. Rose stood frozen in the lobby, her heart racing. The security guard from earlier approached with an umbrella. "Rough day, miss?" Rose looked down at her dripping jacket, then back toward where Nathaniel had vanished. A smile tugged at her lips despite everything. "Actually," she said quietly, "I think it might be the beginning of something extraordinary." She walked out into the rain, clutching her portfolio bag against her chest. The city lights reflected in the puddles like fallen stars. Somewhere high above, in an office that touched the clouds, a man stood by his window watching the streets below. And for the first time in years, Nathaniel Sterling felt something he thought had died long ago. Hope, mixed with fear, desire tangled with caution. He pressed his hand against the cold glass and wondered what he had just started. Tomorrow could not come fast enough. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing content. See you in the next one. Rose arrived at Sterling Industries 15 minutes early, her hands trembling as she clutched a fresh portfolio case borrowed from her roommate. The morning sun cast a golden light across the glass tower, making it gleam like a beacon of impossible dreams. She had barely slept, her mind replaying every second of yesterday's encounter. The elevator ride to the 60th floor felt different in daylight. Rose wore her best outfit, a simple navy dress from a consignment shop, and her mother's vintage pearl earrings. She wanted to look professional without pretending to be someone she wasn't, just as Nathaniel had suggested. The doors opened to a sleek reception area. A woman with silver hair and kind eyes greeted her warmly. "Must be Rose Bennett. Mr. Sterling is expecting you. Please follow me." Rose walked through corridors lined with abstract paintings and minimalist sculptures. Everything screamed wealth and refinement. Yet it all felt a bit cold, like a beautiful museum where nobody actually lived. The assistant knocked on a heavy wooden door before opening it. "Mr. Sterling, Miss Bennett has arrived." Nathaniel stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his back to the door. He wore a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing strong forearms. When he turned, Rose felt that same jolt of awareness that had struck her yesterday. "Thank you, Margaret. Please hold my calls." His voice was calm, controlled, but his eyes held an intensity that made Rose's breath catch. Margaret left, closing the door with a soft click. The silence that followed felt charged with electricity. Nathaniel gestured to a sitting area with leather chairs and a low glass table. "Please sit. Would you like coffee or tea?" "Coffee, please." Rose settled into a chair, trying to project a confidence she didn't feel. Nathaniel poured 2 cups from a silver service cart, his movements precise and practiced. He handed her a cup, their fingers brushing again. This time Rose noticed his hand lingered, as if testing whether the spark between them was real or imagined. "Tell me about yourself, Rose, not your resume." Rose dropping. Rose wrapped her hands around the warm cup, gathering her courage. She had prepared a professional speech about her education and skills, but his request for truth deserved honesty. "I grew up in Queens. My father was a contractor who built homes for families who could barely afford them. He believed everyone deserved beauty in their lives, not just the wealthy." Rose paused, the memory still sharp after 5 years. "He died when I was 18. Construction accident that could have been prevented if the developer had uncut corners to save money." Nathaniel's expression darkened. I'm sorry. That should never happen. It happens more than people want to admit, Rose said, meeting his gaze steadily. After he died, my mother worked 3 jobs to keep our apartment. I put myself through community college, then transferred to design school on a partial scholarship. I work nights at a coffee shop and weekends at a flower market to cover the rest, and yet you still find time to create beautiful spaces, Nathaniel said, setting down his cup and leaning forward. Why design? Why not something more practical, more immediately profitable? Rose smiled softly. Because my father taught me that beauty isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. People need spaces that remind them they matter. Their lives have value beyond just survival. She pulled out her tablet, showing him new sketches she had created last night. I design for the people who think beauty isn't meant for them. Nathaniel studied the images with genuine interest. His finger traced the screen, pausing on a design for a community center with natural light flooding through clever window placement and reading nooks built from repurposed materials. This is what I need, he said finally. Not what I expected to need, but what I've been searching for without knowing it. Rose's heart quickened. What is the project? Nathaniel stood and walked to his desk, returning with a thick folder. Sterling Industries owns a residential building in Brooklyn, 20 floors, 140 units. It was my father's first major development 30 years ago. The building has good bones, but it's become dated, cold. Most tenants are low-income families, seniors, single parents. The previous management company let it deteriorate. He handed Rose the folder, his expression serious. I want to renovate every unit, every common space, but not with the usual corporate approach. I want each apartment to feel like a home, not a rental. I want the lobby to welcome people, not intimidate them. I want residents to feel proud of where they live. Rose opened the folder, her eyes widening at the scope of the project. This is enormous. Why me? You could hire any prestigious firm in the city, because they would design for their portfolio, not for the people living there. Nathaniel sat beside her, closer than was strictly professional. You understand what those families need because you've lived it. You see beauty in repurposed materials and natural light because you've created magic with limited resources. Rose felt tears prick her eyes. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, but doubt crept in like shadows. I've never managed anything this large. What if I fail? Nathaniel reached over and gently turned her face toward his. His touch was warm, his eyes searching hers with an openness that seemed to cost him something. I built my first building at 22 with no experience, and everyone betting against me. Failure is only permanent if you stop trying. He dropped his hand but held her gaze. I'm not offering you this project out of charity, Rose. I'm offering it because you're exactly what this building needs. The question is, are you brave enough to accept? Rose thought of her father, of all the families he had helped, of the dreams she had carried through sleepless nights and exhausting shifts. She thought of the girl who had walked through the rain yesterday, terrified and hopeful. When do I start? She asked, her voice steady. Nathaniel's smile was like sunrise. Today I'll assign you an assistant and a reasonable budget. You have creative control, but I want weekly updates. This matters to me personally. Why? Rose asked softly. Why does this building matter so much to you? For a long moment, Nathaniel said nothing. Then he stood and walked back to the window, his shoulders tense. My father built that building when I was 6 years old. He threw a party when it opened and invited every tenant. I remember families laughing, children playing in the lobby, ... People who looked at my father like he had given them something precious. Rose watched him, seeing the vulnerability beneath his polished exterior. He died 10 years ago, and I inherited his company. I've built towers and shopping centers and luxury hotels, but I forgot why he started building in the first place. He pressed his hand against the glass. That building is a reminder of the man he was before success changed him. I want to honor the part of him that still believed in creating homes, not just properties. Rose stood and walked to stand beside him. She saw the city stretched out below, millions of lives unfolding in concrete and glass. She also saw the man beside her, powerful yet haunted by ghosts of the past. I will make it beautiful, she promised quietly. For your father. For the families who live there. Oh, and for you. Nathaniel turned to her, and the distance between them seemed to shrink. His hand lifted, hovering near her cheek as if he wanted to touch her, but wasn't sure he had permission. "You are remarkable, Rose Bennett. You walk into my world without fear. You speak truth without apology. You make me remember what it feels like to want something beyond the next acquisition or quarterly report." Rose's breath caught. "What do you want?" Nathaniel's thumb brushed her cheekbone featherlight. His eyes held hers with an intensity that made her tremble. "Something I have no right to ask for. Something I'm not sure I deserve." Before Rose could respond, his phone buzzed insistently. Nathaniel stepped back, the moment breaking like glass. He glanced at the screen and sighed. "I have a meeting in 10 minutes. Margaret will set you up with everything you need." He walked her to the door, his hand resting briefly on the small of her back. "Rose, whatever happens with this project, I want you to know something." She looked up at him, waiting. "You remind me that there's still good in this world, that it still matters more than money or power. Don't let anyone, including me, take that away from you." Rose left his office feeling like she was floating and falling at the same time. She didn't understand what was happening between them, this pull that felt both dangerous and inevitable. But as she rode the elevator down, she touched her cheek where his thumb had rested, and she smiled. Nathaniel stood at his window long after she left, his reflection staring back at him. He had built walls around his heart for years, convinced that isolation was strength. But Rose had walked through his door with rain-soaked hair and honest eyes, and suddenly those walls felt like a prison. He wanted her. Not just physically, though. Desire burned hot and insistent. Wanted her laughter, her passion, her way of seeing beauty in broken things. And that terrified him more than any business deal ever had, because Nathaniel Sterling knew his own darkness. He knew the ruthlessness required to build an empire, and he feared that getting close to Rose's light would only show her how much shadow he carried inside. 3 months? That's all it took. 3 months to change everything, and nothing at all. Rose threw herself into the Brooklyn project with a passion that surprised even her. Spent her days measuring apartments, talking with residents about their dreams, sketching designs late into the night. The building became her canvas, and every family became a story she wanted to honor. But it was the evenings that truly changed her life. Nathaniel had insisted on weekly meetings to review her progress. Those meetings stretched from 1 hour to 2, then 3. Soon they weren't just about business. Somewhere between floor plans and fabric samples, they began sharing pieces of themselves. Rose learned that Nathaniel played piano when he couldn't sleep, that he anonymously donated to construction worker safety foundations, that he visited his mother every Sunday despite their complicated relationship. She discovered the man beneath the tailored suits was lonely, brilliant, and desperately afraid of becoming his father. Nathaniel learned that Rose sang while she sketched, that she cried during old movies, that she left encouraging notes for her coffee shop coworkers. He watched her bring warmth to every room she entered, and he found himself craving her presence like oxygen. The tension between them grew impossible to ignore. Lingering glances across conference tables, pans brushing when passing documents, conversations that felt like confessions. But neither of them crossed that invisible line. Until tonight. Rose stood in the renovated lobby of the Brooklyn building, tears streaming down her face. The transformation was complete. Warm wood floors replaced cracked tile. Natural light poured through cleaned windows. Comfortable seating areas invited conversation. It was beautiful, functional, and filled with soul. The residents had gathered for the unveiling, their faces glowing with pride and disbelief. Mrs. Chen from the 5th floor hugged Rose tightly, whispering thank you over and over. Young Tommy Martinez ran his hands along the new children's reading corner, his eyes wide with wonder. Families who had felt invisible finally saw themselves reflected in a space designed with love. Nathaniel stood apart from the crowd, watching Rose. His chest ached with emotions he could no longer deny. She had done something extraordinary. She had proven that compassion could coexist with business, that profit didn't require sacrificing humanity. She had also completely undone him. As the celebration wound down, Rose found Nathaniel on the rooftop terrace she had designed. The city lights spread below them like scattered diamonds. "You did it," he said softly as she approached. "You gave them something that will change how they see themselves." "We did it," Rose corrected, standing beside him. "You made it possible, and you trusted me." Nathaniel turned to face her fully, and Rose saw something raw in his eyes that made her heart stutter. The evening breeze lifted her hair. Without thinking, Nathaniel shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. The gesture was simple but so intimate. Rose clutched the expensive fabric, breathing in his scent of cedar and something uniquely him. "Rose, I need to tell you something." Nathaniel's voice was rough, uncertain. "These past 3 months have been the best of my life. Not because of business success or recognition, because of you." Rose's breath caught. "Nathaniel, I don't understand." He stepped closer, his hands trembling slightly as they cupped her face. "I am saying that I have fallen completely, irrevocably in love with you. I am saying that every meeting was an excuse to be near you. I am saying that you have become the reason I wake up hoping instead of just existing." Tears filled Rose's eyes. She had felt the connection, had dreamed of impossible futures, but hearing the words made everything terrifyingly real. "I'm not from your world," she whispered. "I don't know how to navigate wealth and power. I still shop at thrift stores and eat ramen for dinner. What could you possibly want with someone like me?" Nathaniel's thumb traced her cheekbone. "I want everything. Your honesty that cuts through pretense. Your kindness that sees value in everyone. Your passion that turns ordinary spaces into sanctuaries. You make me want to be better than I am. But there is so much you don't know about me," Rose said, her voice breaking. "Then tell me now." Nathaniel's forehead rested against hers. "Tell me everything and let me prove that nothing will change how I feel." Rose pulled back, needing distance. She walked to the edge of the terrace. The words she had never spoken aloud felt like stones in her throat. "After my father died, I had to grow up instantly. I worked and studied and took care of my mother. I watched friends fall in love, go on dates, have normal experiences, but I never had time for any of that." She turned to face him, vulnerability written across her features. "I never had time for anyone, Nathaniel. I've never been with a man. Never been kissed. Never let anyone close enough to matter." The confession hung between them. Rose waited for his expression to change, for disappointment or disbelief. Dead Nathaniel looked at her with such reverence that it stole her breath. He crossed the distance between them in 3 strides, his hands framing her face with exquisite gentleness. "Rose, do you understand what you're telling me? That I'm completely inexperienced and probably not what you expected?" "No." Nathaniel's voice was fierce, protective. "You are telling me that you chose to give your time and energy to things that mattered, that you honored your commitments and your family, that you refused to settle for anything less than something real?" Rose felt tears spill over. "I was afraid to tell you. Men like you usually want women who are sophisticated and experienced." "I am not other men," Nathaniel said, wiping her tears. "And you are not just any woman. You are the person who reminded me what it means to feel. The woman who sees beauty in broken things. The fact that you've saved this part of yourself, whether by choice or circumstance, only makes me want to treasure you more. Nathaniel, I don't know how to do this, how to be what you need. You already are." He leaned closer, his breath warm against her lips. "You are everything I need, everything I've been searching for without knowing it. May I kiss you, Rose? May I show you how much you mean to me?" Rose nodded, unable to form words. Her heart hammered as Nathaniel slowly, carefully closed the final distance. The kiss was gentle at first, a question rather than a demand. His lips moved against hers with patience and tenderness, teaching her the rhythm without rushing. Rose's hands clutched his shirt, anchoring herself as sensations flooded through her. When Nathaniel deepened the kiss slightly, Rose followed his lead with instinctive trust. She felt safe and cherished and utterly overwhelmed. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathaniel rested his forehead against hers again. His hands trembled where they held her waist. "I love you," he whispered fiercely. "I love your strength and your vulnerability. I love your dreams and your scars. I love that you trusted me with your truth." Rose touched his face, wonder filling her eyes. "I love you too. I think I've loved you since that first day in the elevator when you saw me instead of looking through me." Nathaniel kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose. "Then we build something together, not just buildings. A life, a future. Whatever you want, whatever pace you need, I will be here." Rose smiled through her tears. "I want you. All of you. It's a power in the vulnerability, the success in the shadows. I want to help you remember why beauty matters. And I want you to remind me that I deserve to dream, Then dream with me, Nathaniel murmured against her lips. Dream of a life where we create beauty together, where we honor the past while building something new, where love is not weakness, but the greatest strength we possess. As the city lights twinkled below, Rose and Nathaniel held each other on the rooftop. Two people from different worlds who had found in each other exactly what they needed. 6 months later, Rose stood in a different building, wearing a simple white dress and holding wildflowers. Nathaniel waited at the end of an aisle lined with residents from the Brooklyn building, friends from her coffee shop, and even Margaret, who had become like a second mother. When Rose reached him, Nathaniel took her hands and spoke vows he had written himself. "I promise to see you every day the way I saw you that first moment. I promise to protect your light while you heal my darkness. I promise to build a home with you where love is the foundation and beauty is the purpose." Rose spoke through happy tears. "I promise to remind you every day that you are more than your success or your past. I promise to create beauty beside you for families who need hope. I promise to love you with everything I am and everything I am becoming." They kissed as husband and wife while there. Gathered loved ones cheered. Mrs. Chen wiped her eyes. Tommy Martinez threw flower petals. And somewhere Rose liked to imagine, her father smiled. Knowing his daughter had found a man who understood that true wealth was measured in love, not money. Nathaniel swept Rose into his arms, carrying her down the aisle as laughter surrounded them. She had walked into his life untouched by cynicism, pure in her belief that everyone deserved beauty. And in protecting her innocence while claiming her heart, Nathaniel had found his own redemption. The billionaire who had everything discovered that the only thing that truly mattered was the woman in his arms who had given him her untouched heart and taught him to feel again. Their story was just beginning, and it was more beautiful than either had dared to dream. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories like this one. See you next time.